Hey y'all, it's your friend D, and I have not been practicing on my sewing machine like I should have. So I'm going to get back to that in this video. And I'm going to start by making a Halloween costume for the dolls. And I did already make a prototype of this costume just to help me out with some measurements. So hopefully I can execute them and we'll have a costume that will fit the Barbies and the Ken dolls. Full disclosure, guys, this first costume is made using the My Froggy Stuff onesie pattern, and it is free on her blog. I will link her original video, and in that video, she gives you the link to the patterns on her blog. And this just makes it so much easier for someone like me who's a beginner. I tried to draw up my own pattern, and then I realized that it was basically a onesie, and I remembered that she already had one on her website. So thought, why not use it? Free resources like these are great for beginner sewers. This helps me cut down on wasting materials. I don't know how many times I've tried to make a project from scratch and my measurements have been off and I've had to just throw away that material and cut out more. So these are very helpful if you just need a little bit of help from the beginning. Now I'm going to use this pattern as the base of my costume, and then I'm just going to add on to it. When you're printing from her website, she always provides a scale so you know you've printed the right size. All you have to do is take your ruler and it should match up 1 inch and you know you've printed the right size. I did decide that I wanted the onesie to fit a little bit larger on my Barbies, so I did enlarge it by 20% on my computer. So you can see here that this one is bigger and the sleeve is bigger. Hopefully this will also fit a Ken, but I'm not too sure about that. And keep in mind, 20% on your computer and printer may be a little bit different than what it came out on mine. So let's go over the pieces that I cut out really quickly. For the sleeves, I cut out 2, one in a black and white material and one in an orange. Per Toria's instructions, aka My Froggy Stuff, I did cut out 4 pieces for the body. The first 2 are just the black and white materials, and I laid them with the printed side facing each other, and I just cut those out. And then with the orange material, with this one, it doesn't matter. There's not any difference to either side, but I just flipped it over onto my orange material and I cut my 2 pieces out that way. Where my design differs from hers is I'm going to add a few more pieces of fabric onto mine. I have 4 pieces that are cut to 5 inches by 2 inches. 1 piece that is cut to 4 inches by 1 inch. And 1 piece that is cut to 8 inches by 3.5. Here are my 4 pieces for the body, and I'm going to match up an orange with a black and white piece. And if you're using all the same color, this is going to be super easy for you. So for me, I'm going to just match these up. And this is the back side of the black and white. So you can see it looks a lot better on this side. And I want that facing the orange. From here, I'll keep following my Froggy Stuff tutorial until I get ready to attach my sleeves. So if you look at your piece at the bottom here, there is a curve. You want to start at the top of this curve and sew up to the top. And don't worry about your seam allowance. If you look at the pattern, she's already built in a 1/4 inch seam allowance for you. And on the other side, you also want to start at the top of the curve and sew about 1/3 of the way up. For this side, I did add a pin to remind myself to stop at that point. And you also might want to add a few pins in different places just to make sure that your fabric doesn't move around on you while you're sewing. So I sewed all along on this side. You can see it better here. And when you open it up, it looks like this. And on this side, we only sewed 1/3 of the way up. Here's what it looks like on the back side. I used black thread for mine. And when you open it up, you have this. So now we're going to continue working on this piece. Because we didn't completely sew this together, we still have an opening at the top. And we're going to take one side and fold it over about 1/4 inch. and we're going to sew this down. So I've sewn this side down, and something that I did differently than what Toya does, on the side that we did not fold over, I added a zigzag stitch, and that is just to keep the fabric from fraying, because in her video, I believe she was using fleece, so she didn't have to put a stitch here, but I wanted something to keep this from fraying any more than it already is. So now when we lay this piece down, you'll see that the black and white material will overlap the orange material, and you don't see that zigzag. This is where our closures are going to be. Now we can take these two pieces and start sewing them together. So I'm going to take this one and lay it on top. And remember, this is the part that we stitched. We want that to be on the top facing out. So I'm going to lay that one down first. And then lay this one. And try to line everything together. These corners here. And so now I'm going to stitch in from the sides here about maybe 1/4 of an inch, because I need to leave an opening for the doll's head. So yeah, about 1/4 of an inch on each side. I sewed over 1/4 of an inch on both sides, and I kind of got in a hurry because I thought, oh, it's just a little bitty stitch, and yeah, I kind of messed my stitches up. They're not the neatest, but it's gonna hold. But here's what it looks like flipped over. And we do have an opening here for the doll's neck, and this is where our Velcro, I'm going to use snaps for mine, but you can definitely use Velcro like she did in hers to close it. This is where in my Froggy Stuff tutorial, she would add her sleeves. I'm going to hold off with that because I'm going to do something a little bit different here. This is where I'm going to start taking those extra pieces that I cut and start making ruffles for the collar, the sleeves, and both legs. For the collar, I'm going to take the 4" by 1" piece and the 8" by 3.5" piece, and I'm going to fold them both in half like this. And on the ends here, I'm going to just do a straight stitch down on each end. So I've sewn both sides down on each one of these pieces. And now we're just going to trim off these corners here a little bit, because we're going to turn these inside out. So that'll take some of the bulk out of the corners. And just push that through. And I just took the end of a paintbrush and made sure I got those corners really good. Now I'm going to start creating the ruffles for my collar, and this is going to be the main part of the collar, and this is going to be the ruffle. Now to make the ruffle, there are several different ways to do it. I think a lot of people just do a loose straight stitch and then they pull it and it will gather into a ruffle. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to take mine, find the center of my larger piece by folding it in half, and then I'm going to do the same with my shorter piece. Now that I know where the center is, I'm going to match those up on the open ends. So remember, we flip these inside out. So on the end that's open, I'm going to match those up. In the center. So I wouldn't lose the center mark. I did pin it. And now I'm going to take one side. I'm going to match up the ends here. Like that. And I'm going to pin that. Now I can start slowly gathering this side and making ruffles. So to do that, I'm just going to take this, the larger part, fold it over, pin that ruffle in place. So that's one. I'm going to do another one. And there's not any rhyme or reason to how I'm doing this. I'm not measuring it. I'm just trying to get as many as I can and make it look as neat as I can. So fold it over, pin that. So I have this side done, and like I said, there's not any rhyme or reason. Just make it look good to your liking. And here's what the other side looks like. So you see that shorter piece here. And now I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So I'm going to put my ends together, pin that, and then I'll start making little ruffles along this side. So I have all of my ruffles pinned in place. And you see that the shorter one was kept straight. So the only piece that was being folded was the larger piece. Now I'm going to sew these two pieces together. So here's what I ended up with, and I did make a mistake here. You can see there's not really a ruffle here. When I was pulling it through the sewing machine, I kind of tugged a little bit too much and my pin came out and I didn't notice it. And so this part was pulled straight, but I did get ruffles everywhere else. And this is what it looks like on this side. So when I fold it, you'll see there is a little bit of a collar right here. And this is what's going to go around the neckline of our doll. So it kind of looks like a little skirt right now. But once we fluff it up, I'm hoping it looks like a clown collar, you know, all of the ruffles and the, I'm not sure what it's called, but that's the look we're going for. Now we're going to take two of the 5 by 2 inch pieces and we're going to fold them in half. And we're going to create the ruffles for our sleeves. And for these pieces, there isn't a need to sew along the edge and flip it inside out, because when we sew the sleeves together, it'll take care of those edges for us. So for now, I'm just going to find my center and line it up with the center of my sleeve edge here. So this is the part that's going to be the shoulder, the part that curves. The straight edge is the end of the sleeve. Pin it and then just start making ruffles. I have my ruffles pinned and now I'm going to sew along the edge here. I have the ruffles on my sleeves, so you can see where I stitched, and if I flip it over, I have my ruffles, and these actually came out better than the ones for the collar, and I think I should have made this material longer so I could got more ruffles in it, but we'll still work with this one. And if you want your ruffles to lay flatter, you can go back and do a top stitch right here along the edge. But I want mine to kind of flare out a little bit. So I'm just going to leave it like it is. So of course I have an issue now. I'm getting ready to attach the collar to the body of the costume. And I can't figure out why I made the collar the size I made it. I know I made it a little bit longer than the collar for a reason, but I can't remember why. If I wanted it to overlap or something, because it's way longer than the collar. So I have all of this extra material. And I know I did that for a reason, but I can't remember why. So I'll come back to the collar later. This is a learning experience. I will figure it out. But now I'm just going to put the sleeves on. So just like in Toya's video. So you see the corners here. I'm going to sew around to those corners. So we're just going to line it up with our seam here on the shoulder. And just sew along the sides to attach. So I have the sleeves on and I'm actually happy with myself. I do not do very well with sleeves, but I think I did okay with these. So they're sewn on, and if I flip it inside out, So this is what we have so far. It's not too bad, but now we have to start sewing up the bottom and put the ruffles on the bottom of the legs. I turned the costume inside out and I lined up my sides, so I pinned it down. I'm going to sew along here, then go down the arm, and the sides will be sewn together. Down here in the center, this part is still open. So now that I have the sides sewn together, I'm going to open it up here in the center. And at the bottom of the legs, I'm going to make the ruffles the same way I made them for the sleeves. So now I'm going to line everything up and sew the legs closed all the way around to the other side. Guys, this is the very next day because I just needed to walk away from this project for a while. I was ready to scrap this and just delete all the footage. I was getting frustrated because I never could figure out why I made the collar the size I did, and I know I had a reason for that. But I decided to just sleep on it and come back today and see how to salvage this. So now that I'm back and looking at it, I do think I did a really good job on the body. I decided to just go ahead and sew the collar here closed. I just folded it over and just put a straight stitch around. And I'm just going to keep this part separate. And I put a little snap here, and those just close together like that. Didn't do the best job sewing those on, but they're on. So the collar is going to stay separate. For the back, I just put Velcro on it. I had 2 small pieces left over from another project, so that's what I used. So I just have Velcro on there. And I think this is going to be okay now that I look at it. And I want to compare it to the prototype that I made. Here are the two side by side, and I do think the second attempt, which is the orange one, came out a little better since I went in with a plan. With the first one, you can see I did get the collar on, but I only used 1 layer of fabric. I just put a hem at the bottom. With the orange one, I did fold the fabric in half, so I had 2 layers. And I like the way this one looked more than this one. Also on the orange one, I took my time sewing on the sleeves because I have an issue with my sleeves bunching when I sew, and it's basically because I tried to go too fast. As you can see here, it bunched up and it didn't catch all of the fabric. And I think the other side also is a little wonky. The good thing about this costume is that you could really use either side as the front or the back. And originally I planned to use the side with the opening as my front. But on the prototype, this is when I realized my collar was too short. So I knew I had to make it longer. And I thought I measured it out right. But this one won't close at the neck. And I think the neck was a little bit tight. But I can still flip it around and use the other side. And I was going to add pom-poms onto these. So the Dollar Tree has these little fuzzy pom-poms. You can get them in a pack of 90, and they come in different sizes. So I was going to glue some as buttons, but I might still do that on the green one. Here are the finished costumes, and as you can see, it can fit a Barbie and a Ken. And I am going to keep the prototype because I think I can get away with it in photos. You can't really see all of the mistakes that I made on it, but I think these came out better than what I thought. I'm glad I stepped away and just slept on it and did not scrap this project. And to help you guys, if you want to print it out to the same size as I did so it could fit a Ken doll, I increased the size of mine by 20% on my printer, and that put this 1-inch scale at 1 1/4 inches. I do think the ruffle on this one, the collar of it is too tall, and it looks a little weird, but I think I can fix it. In a previous video, I shared these jack-o'-lantern pails with you. They come in this green and orange, and they already have a face on it, but I realized if I turned it upside down, it could fit on top of a doll. So I just drew another face on the back side of it, and now I can put it over my Ken doll's head. So my friends, let me know what you think about these costumes, and if you have any questions about anything in this video, please leave it in the comments below. I will try my best to answer your questions, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on your notifications. I'll see you next time, my friends. Bye-bye.